Alright guys, today we're going to do a revolutions tier list. This one is going to be on the 10 most widely regarded influential revolutions, essentially revolutions of the past 270-ish years. Because I think the oldest one on this list is the American Revolution. The reason we're only doing 10 is because, well, I'm lazy. So in regards to these revolutions, I am going to rank them in terms of how impactful they are in regards to one another. So it's not necessarily, because a lot of these revolutions are pretty influential to the modern day. But if you rank them next to one another, some are weaker than others in terms of their total, influence. Like obviously S tier is going to be super influential, most influential, etc., etc. But yeah, we're going to get right into it. And by starting off with the American Revolution, and I don't think anyone should disagree with me on this one, because of just how influential America has been, especially in the last century. I think the American Revolution deserves to be S tier, even if it were on even if I had 50 other revolutions on this list. I think the American Revolution would still be S tier, just because of how influential it is to the modern day. I mean, America is the wealthiest country in the world right now. So yeah, I think I think that's gonna be S tier. Now we've got the Chinese Communist Revolution under Mao Zedong. That is going to be A tier, mainly because while China has become extremely influential, but that has really only started, China has only been starting to really push up to the front of world politics in the last 40 years or so. Following the success of the Chinese Communist Party, they still weren't all too influential on the wider scale. They did not like Stalin. They didn't really work with the communists. They wanted their own thing. They intervened in Korea. But aside from that, their influence has only really started happening in the 21st century, in the late 20th. So with the downfall of the Soviet Union, did the communist China start really becoming to the forefront. But I think because of those reasons, they deserve A tier, but not enough to get up to S tier just because they haven't been around that long. Cuban Revolution, I'm going to put it at D tier. The reason it's down at D tier is because, well, it's kind of only influential in the local politics, in the local foreign relations, the American area, Caribbean, etc. But outside of that, it hasn't necessarily done too much, nor has it affected the world, as well as only having happened 60, 70 years ago. So, Haitian Revolution, D tier. Now we have the French Revolution. I'm going to put it at S tier, and there's one reason why. It is because of a figure that appeared during the French Revolution, Napoleon Bonaparte. And because of Napoleon, we have a time period literally called the Napoleonic era. And because of Napoleon, he changed up the political landscape of Europe dramatically. You can even make an argument for, if it weren't for Napoleon, possibly World War I would not have happened, or it would not have happened in the way that it did. Because what he did is he allowed for the dissolution of the Holy Roman Empire, and in turn, that weakening and fracturing of the Austrian Empire and Austria into Austria-Hungary, and the rise of Prussia. It allowed Prussia to unify the German states, and in 1870, unify Germany. And obviously, go from there, and we get World War I. I think because of that reason, because of Napoleon, the French Revolution gets S tier. If there had not been Napoleon, I'm gonna be honest. I think I would probably put the French Revolution at B tier, maybe A tier. But because of Napoleon, they skyrocket to S. Now we have the Haitian Revolution. Haiti, I'm gonna be honest. I'm gonna give it C tier. It was the first former slave free country. Country run by former slaves, and it was right on America's doorstep. So American plantation owners really did not like the Haitian Revolution, as well as many Europeans did not like the idea of a free slave state near their other colonies where they were making lots of money from their from their slaves. And actually, you know what? I'm gonna bump them up to B tier because Napoleon did try to retake them and he failed. So I think they'll go up to B tier. I think they deserve that. Now we have the Iranian Revolution. I'm gonna put it in the same spot as the Cuban, but I'm gonna put it higher. It has led to the Iranian government as it is known now because of this revolution. I think they've raised tensions in the world, but really they've only kind of it wasn't until maybe the last decade or so has Iran really started to push more into the global politics kind of area. But after this revolution, they were still very much local. I mean, even today, I'd say they're pretty local. It's only really that argument about nuclear weaponry that has pushed them to the forefront, as well as obviously America not liking Iran. But I think they're a D tier right now. We'll see if Iran does more things in the future and they still have the government that was formed from this revolution. I think then maybe we will see them jumping up the tier list. That depends. Now we have the revolutions of 1848. I'm going to put these at D tier as well. And actually, I'm going to put the Iranian Revolution up at C tier because they've been getting more involved in world foreign affairs. But the revolutions of 1848, I'm going to put those at D tier because they just really didn't do much, man. They're okay. They didn't really change much. In a sense, they pretty much all failed. And I also don't know much about them, so I'm gonna put them at D tier. Now we have the Russian Revolution. I don't think anyone can disagree with me putting the Russian Revolution S tier because of just how much of an impact the Soviet Union had on world affairs for the 70-ish years that it existed and until it fell in 1991. But even then, the world that the Soviet Union left behind is still heavily influenced by the actions that it had taken during its time around. We are still feeling the effects of the Soviet Union to this day. The heightened tensions with Russia still exist because of the Soviet Union, as well as other reasons, but to simplify, Soviet Union. So I think they deserve S tier. Now we have the Jianhai Revolution. It's the revolution that brought about the downfall of the Qing Empire. I'm going to put them at top of A tier. I'm going to put them above the Communist Revolution because if it weren't for the Jianhai Revolution of 1911, I don't think the Communist Party could have gotten the foothold that it did when it did, which allowed it then to take control from Chiang Kai-shek following World War II. The fall of the Qing Empire is very influential. I am tempted to put it at S tier because of how it also shaped Japanese politics, and thus because of Japan shaping American politics in the early 20th century. But outside of that region, I think it deserves A tier. I don't want to put too many people up at S as well. I think people can make an argument between switching the Soviet Revolution and the Xianhai Revolution. I just don't know enough about the Xianhai Revolution in detail to bump it up to S tier like I know these 3 revolutions. But I think placing them there at top of A is a decent pudding for someone not too knowledgeable on it. But yeah, I think that's going to be it for today. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed, remember to hit that like button and subscribe for more. Thank you.